The sweatiest summer ever. Lily slapped the book shut, the sudden noise echoing in the stifling air. Ugh, she groaned, tossing the copy of A Brief History of Nearly Everything onto the floor. Even the promise of understanding the universe couldn't distract her from the swamp that had become her bedroom. The sweat trickled down her back, plastering her t-shirt to her skin. It was only the first day of summer vacation, and already it was shaping up to be the sweatiest summer ever. She kicked off the tangled mess of her duvet and padded barefoot to the window. The sun glared down, baking the asphalt of the street. Even the leaves on the maple tree outside her window hung limp and defeated. Everything seemed to be wilting under the oppressive heat. Why did summer have to be so summery? "Mom," she yelled, her voice cracking slightly. "Mom, I'm melting." A muffled "just a minute," Lily, floated up the stairs. Lily slumped against the doorframe, fanning herself with her hand. The air was thick and heavy, offering no relief. She could practically see the heat shimmering in the air. Finally, her mom appeared, wiping her brow with the back of her hand. "What is it, sweetie?" "I'm trying to finish up this report before my deadline." "It's too hot," Lily wailed, throwing her arms wide. "It's like living in a sauna. I can't even think, let alone read about the Big Bang." Her mom sighed. "I know, honey, it's awful. I've got the fans going downstairs but it's not enough." Lily interrupted, feeling a surge of frustration. "Why is it so much worse in my room?" Her mom winced. "Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Your air conditioner, it's not working." Lily's jaw dropped. "What? Not working? But that's not possible. I thought I heard it humming yesterday." "It was humming, but it wasn't actually cooling," her mom explained, fiddling with the hem of her shirt. "I called Mr. Henderson, you know, from next door. The one who fixes everything. And he said it's the compressor. He said it's kaput." "Kaput?" Lily stared at her mom, the word hanging in the air like a bad omen. "Kaput? What does that even mean? Can't he just, fix it? He said he'd take a look at it tomorrow, but he thinks it might need a whole new unit. And those are expensive." Her mom's voice trailed off, her eyes darting around the room, as if searching for an escape route. Lily's stomach dropped. A whole summer without air conditioning. Trapped in her sweltering bedroom. The thought was unbearable. But what am I supposed to do? Sleep in the freezer? "We'll figure something out," her mom said, trying to sound reassuring. "Maybe we can get a window unit for now. Or you can sleep on the couch downstairs. It's cooler there." Lily knew the couch wasn't the answer. It was lumpy and smelled faintly of dog. This wasn't just a minor inconvenience, this was a disaster. The sweatiest, most unbearable disaster in the history of summer vacations. "Mr. Fix-It next door." Lily's mom squinted at the air conditioner manual, a spiral-bound beast filled with diagrams that looked like abstract art. "I swear, they write these things in hieroglyphics." Detach the whatchamacallit from the thingamajig. She tossed the manual onto the kitchen table with a frustrated sigh. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the whirring fan. "Maybe we should just call a repairman, Mom," Lily suggested, already feeling the familiar prickle of summer humidity on her skin. "And pay a fortune. We'll figure it out. We always do." Her mom's voice was determined, but Lily could see the worry etched around her eyes. Before another round of deciphering could begin, a shadow fell across the doorway. "Trouble in paradise," a cheerful voice boomed. Mike Olson, their neighbor from next door, stood there, a toolbox gleaming in his hand. He was a sturdy man, his face lined with the map of a life well lived, and his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, which was often. "Mr. Olson." "Just the man we need," Lily's mom exclaimed, relief flooding her face. "Our air conditioner decided to take a permanent vacation. Call me Mike, please." "And permanent vacation, eh?" Let's see if we can't convince it otherwise. He chuckled, a warm, rumbling sound. He ambled over to the offending unit, a window shaker that was now more of a window warmer. Mind if I take a look? Be my guest, Lily's mom said, stepping aside. Lily trailed after them, eager to observe. Mike ran a practiced hand along the cool metal casing, his brow furrowing slightly. He unscrewed the front panel with a deftness that spoke of years of experience. Dust motes danced in the dim light filtering through the window as he peered inside. He poked and prodded, his expression thoughtful. He even gave the whole unit a sniff. He said finally, straightening up. Sounds like the compressor might be shot. But let's not jump to conclusions. Could be something simpler, like a capacitor. Got a multimeter handy? Lily's mom blinked. A multi. What now? Mike grinned. Don't worry, I've got one in my kit. I'll run a few tests, see what's what. Might be able to get you two back to cool comfort in no time. He winked at Lily. Always happy to help a damsel or two in distress. Lily felt a blush creep up her neck. It was probably just the heat, she reasoned, but there was something undeniably charming about Mike's easy confidence and the way his eyes sparkled with good humor. Tools, gears, and gizmos. The offending AAC unit sat wheezing in the side yard, a monument to summer's stubborn heat. Mike, clad in a faded blue t-shirt and jeans, knelt beside it, a metal toolbox yawning open at his side. Lily hovered nearby, kicking at a loose pebble with the toe of her sandal. So she began, her voice tentative. What exactly goes wrong with these things? Mike glanced up, a smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. Lots of things, kiddo. Could be the compressor, the fan motor, refrigerant leak. Like a grumpy old man, lots of parts can start complaining. He reached into the toolbox, extracting a long, thin screwdriver with a black handle. First things first, gotta check the capacitor. Lily watched, fascinated, as he used the screwdriver to discharge something inside the unit. A faint pop echoed in the still air. What's a capacitor? Think of it like a battery, Mike explained, carefully removing the component. It was a cylindrical object, dull gray with a couple of wires sprouting from the top. Stores energy and gives the fan motor that extra jolt it needs to get going. He held it up, examining it closely. Looks a little swollen. Probably the culprit. He moved with a quiet confidence, each action precise and deliberate. Lily found herself drawn to his methodical approach. Unlike her own tendency to flail and panic when faced with a problem, Mike seemed calm, almost meditative. He rummaged through his toolbox again, this time pulling out a multimeter, a device Lily vaguely remembered from high school physics. Now we test. He connected the probes to the capacitor's terminals, his brow furrowed in concentration. Numbers flickered on the small screen. Is that bad? Lily asked, leaning closer. Mike chuckled. Yep. Reading way off. This little guy's given up the ghost. He stood, stretching his back with a groan. Lucky for you, I think I have a spare in the truck. He ambled off towards his pickup, leaving Lily to stare at the disassembled AAC unit. Wires snaked out from its innards like colorful spaghetti. She cautiously peered inside, trying to make sense of the jumble of metal and plastic. Mike returned, brandishing a new capacitor in its plastic packaging. All right, let's see if we can breathe some life back into this beast. He carefully installed the new component, securing it with a practiced twist of his wrist. Now for the moment of truth. He plugged the AAC unit back in. A low hum filled the air, followed by the whirring of the fan. Cool air began to flow, chasing away the oppressive heat. Lily grinned. You fixed it. Mike wiped his brow with the back of his hand, a satisfied smile on his face. Seems like it. Though he added, his eyes twinkling, I might need a tall glass of lemonade as payment for my services. Lily laughed. Deal. Coming right up. But first, How does that refrigerant thing work? Dusty disaster and giggles. Mike wrestled with the stubborn cover of the AC unit, a low grunt escaping his lips. These old things are built like tanks, he said, finally prying it loose. A plume of dust erupted, engulfing him in a brown cloud. Lily gasped, stepping back. When the dust settled, Mike stood there, looking like he'd aged 50 years in the last 5 seconds. His usually bright blue eyes were rimmed with grime, his hair was powdered gray, and even his perpetually cheerful grin was obscured by a layer of dust on his teeth. A giggle escaped Lily, then another, and soon she was bent double, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, Mike," she managed to choke out between bursts of laughter. You look like a chimney sweep." At first, Mike looked bewildered, brushing at his face with dusty hands, only making it worse. Then, seeing the sheer joy on Lily's face, a slow rumble started in his chest. It grew into a hearty laugh that shook his whole body, sending another puff of dust into the air. "Well, I guess that's one way to break the ice," he said, his voice gravelly. He reached for a rag Lily offered, accepting it with a wink. "Didn't realize I was signing up for a full-body exfoliation when I offered to help." Lily wiped her eyes, still chuckling. "I'm so sorry," she said, though she didn't sound very sorry at all. "It's just unexpected." "Unexpected is my middle name," Mike joked, scrubbing at his face with the rag. Some of the dust smeared, creating streaks on his cheeks. He looked even more ridiculous now, and Lily's laughter bubbled up again. Okay, he said, holding up a hand, a genuine smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Enough about my stunning good looks. Let's get this thing fixed before I spontaneously combust from all this ancient stuff." The laughter seemed to have cleared the air, dissipating some of the tension that had been simmering between them. They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes, Mike pointing out the corroded wires and explaining the function of each component. He was patient and clear, and Lily found herself genuinely interested in the mechanics of the machine. The dust, forgotten for the moment, lay like a fine patina on everything around them, a testament to their shared, slightly absurd, experience. The mood was lighter now, easier, and Lily found herself looking forward to what came next. A missing piece of the puzzle. Mike crouched, peering into the dusty innards of the air conditioning unit with a focused frown. The rhythmic whir of the ceiling fan overhead did little to dispel the stagnant August heat that clung to Lily's skin like a damp cloth. She perched on the edge of the faded floral armchair, watching him with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Mike finally said, straightening up with a groan that suggested his knees were protesting the effort. He wiped a smudge of grime from his forehead, leaving a faint streak across his tanned skin. "Looks like we've got a problem." Lily's heart sank. "What kind of problem?" He gestured towards a space inside the unit, a dark rectangle amidst the coils and wires. "See that opening there? There should be a capacitor start relay. Think of it as the ignition switch for the compressor. Without it, the compressor motor can't get going. So, it's like a car without a starter." Lily asked, trying to visualize the function of the missing piece. "Exactly." Mike beamed. "Good analogy, Lily. Without it, your AC is just a fancy fan." Lily bit her lip. "Okay, but where would it go? Did it just disappear?" Mike shrugged, a rueful smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Could be a number of things. Vibration could have shaken it loose, a critter might have chewed through the wires, or it might have given up the ghost entirely. Sometimes they just fail." He ran a hand through his already tousled hair. "Whatever the reason, we need a new one." A wave of disappointment washed over Lily. She'd been so hopeful that Mike could perform some kind of miracle, a quick fix with a screwdriver and a bit of know-how. "So, we're back to square one." "Not exactly," Mike countered, his voice surprisingly upbeat. "The good news is, these relays are pretty standard. I can pick one up at Miller's Hardware. They're usually pretty well stocked." Lily jumped up, suddenly energized. "I'll come with you," she blurted out, then immediately felt a blush creeping up her neck. I mean, if you don't mind. I could use the fresh air. Although, truth be told, she was more interested in the company than the air. The prospect of spending more time with Mike, even in the fluorescent-lit aisles of a hardware store, was far more appealing than sweltering alone in her apartment. Mike's eyes lit up. I'd like that, Lily. Let me just grab my keys. He paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. You know, while we're there, we should probably pick up some window sealant too. I noticed a draft around your bedroom window the other day. It'll help keep the cool air in, once we get this AC running. Lily's blush deepened, a warmth that had nothing to do with the oppressive heat. He'd noticed the draft. He'd been paying attention. Okay, she managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. Sealant too. Sounds smart. Hardware store adventure. The fluorescent lights of the hardware store hummed, casting a sterile glow on aisles packed high with metal and plastic. Lily trailed behind Mike, her sneakers squeaking on the polished concrete floor. So why this kind of bolt specifically? She asked, pointing at the small, silver fastener in his hand. Mike chuckled. Good question, Lily. It's all about the sheer strength. See how it's not fully threaded? That smooth shank takes the pressure when the bracket shifts, preventing it from snapping clean through. He mimed a braking motion with his hands. Lily squinted at the bolt, trying to decipher its secrets. Huh. I always thought bolts were just bolts. That's where the fun is. Mike grinned, leading her deeper into the labyrinthine aisles. All right, next up, rubber grommets. These bad boys need to be heat-resistant, so we're looking for silicone. Lily peered at the labels, a jumble of numbers and abbreviations swam before her eyes. This is like learning a whole new language, she muttered, feeling a little overwhelmed. Don't worry, you'll get the hang of it, Mike said, his voice encouraging. Think of it like a puzzle. Each piece has its place. He pointed to a section labeled Specialty Fasteners. Let's check over there. Navigating past displays of garden hoses and power tools, they finally located the grommets. Lily scanned the packages, her brow furrowed in concentration. Are these silicone? She asked, holding up a small bag. Mike took the bag, examining the label. Nope, these are neoprene. Good for general use, but not tough enough for the heat we're dealing with. Keep looking. Lily felt a surge of determination. She would find those silicone grommets. After another 5 minutes of searching, her eyes landed on a package with a tiny SIL printed in the corner. Mike! I found them, she exclaimed, holding up the bag triumphantly. Mike clapped her on the shoulder. Excellent work, Detective Thompson. You've got a knack for this. Feeling a blush creep up her neck, Lily beamed. I guess I do, she mumbled, suddenly feeling like a valuable asset. As they headed towards the checkout, Mike stopped at a display of candy bars. Fuel stop, he announced, grabbing 2 chocolate bars. My treat. They sat on a bench outside the store, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. Lily unwrapped her candy bar, the rich chocolate aroma filling the air. So, she said, taking a bite. What's your favorite thing about fixing things? Mike pondered for a moment. The satisfaction of making something work again. Taking something broken and giving it new life. Plus, he added with a wink, it's a good excuse to buy more tools. Lily laughed. I can see that. What about your least favorite thing? Stripped screws, Mike said with a grimace. Those little devils are the bane of my existence. Lily giggled, imagining Mike battling a particularly stubborn screw. The chocolate melted in her mouth, sweet and satisfying. This whole hardware store adventure had been surprisingly fun. And spending time with Mike, even amidst the nuts and bolts, was definitely a bonus. The tricky fix. The new capacitor, gleaming under the harsh kitchen light, looked deceptively simple. Mike held it up, squinting. All right, Lily, let's get this bad boy installed and get you back to cool comfort. He marched out to the offending AC unit, humming a tuneless melody. Lily followed, a toolbox clutched in her hands, feeling like an apprentice shadowing a master craftsman. Or at least, that's how it started. 30 minutes later, the humming had stopped, replaced by a frustrated grunt. Mike wrestled with the wires, his brow furrowed in concentration. He muttered something under his breath about stubborn connectors and engineered obsolescence. Lily perched on the porch steps, watching dust motes dance in the sunlight, a growing sense of unease settling in. "Everything all right, Mike?" she asked, trying to keep the concern from her voice. He straightened up, wiping sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a smudge of grime across his temple. "Almost. Just. This connector is being a real pain. The old one practically disintegrated when I touched it, and this new one won't quite seat properly." He jiggled the wire again, a frustrated noise escaping his lips. "I don't want to force it and break something else." Lily bit her lip, feeling a pang of guilt. She'd envisioned this as a quick fix, a neighborly deed completed in an hour. Now it felt like they were staring down the barrel of a much bigger problem. Can I see?" Mike stepped aside, gesturing to the exposed wiring with a weary sigh. "Be careful, Lily. Don't touch anything metal." She peered into the cramped space, her nose wrinkling at the musty smell of old electronics. The connector looked like a tiny, stubborn puzzle piece. Maybe the plastic clip is bent," she suggested, tilting her head. "It looks like it's catching on the edge of the terminal." Mike squinted, then pulled out his pocket knife. "Good eye, Lily. Let's see." He carefully used the tip of the knife to gently pry at the plastic clip. It snapped off with a tiny click. "Oh!" Lily gasped. Mike examined the broken piece. "Well, that's not ideal." He sighed. "Now it definitely won't stay connected." Lily chewed on her thumbnail, thinking hard. What if we used a zip tie to hold it in place?" Mike paused, his eyes widening. "A zip tie? You know, that just might work." He rummaged in his toolbox, pulling out a handful of black zip ties. "Brilliant, Lily. Absolutely brilliant. Lily's bright idea." Lily chewed on her thumbnail, staring at the disassembled air conditioning unit. Mike was currently wrestling with a recalcitrant capacitor, muttering under his breath about infernal little circuits. The late afternoon sun streamed through the living room window, turning dust motes into tiny, dancing stars. The air, thick and still, felt 10 degrees hotter than it probably was. "Are you sure that's the right one, Mike?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mike grunted. "Pretty sure. It's the same rating as the blown one. Just stubborn." He gave the capacitor another shove, then sighed. "Nope. Not going." Lily, restless and feeling increasingly useless, wandered over to the nearest vent, a floor register near the sofa. She knelt, peering into the gloom. It was half closed, its metal fins angled downwards. Frustration gnawed at her. They'd been at this for hours. First the diagnosis, then the trip to the hardware store, now this endless fiddling. The apartment felt like a pressure cooker, and her usually optimistic spirit was beginning to wilt. Then, a flicker. Something Mike had said earlier, almost in passing, about airflow. He'd been explaining how the AC unit worked, how it needed a constant intake and outtake to circulate the cool air efficiently. He'd used a complicated analogy about lungs and breathing, which she hadn't entirely grasped at the time. But the word circulation stuck. She sat back on her heels, a sudden spark igniting in her eyes. "Mike?" He looked up, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "Yeah, Lily. Remember when you were explaining about the airflow, and how important it was for the air to move around?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, what about it?" Lily pointed towards the vent. "Well, what if we're not getting enough airflow? This vent is almost closed. Maybe the AC is struggling because it can't pull enough air back into cool. She felt a blush creep up her neck. It sounded so simple, so obvious, yet she hadn't thought of it before. Mike stared at the vent, then at Lily, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You know, Lily," he said, "that's actually a pretty damn good idea." He tossed the stubborn capacitor onto the nearby toolbox with a clatter and stood up, stretching his back. "Worth a shot, anyway. Nothing else seems to be working." He knelt beside her and, with a satisfying click, fully opened the vent. A small rush of air, barely perceptible, stirred the dust bunnies huddled in the corners. "All right," Mike said, dusting off his hands. "Let's give that bad boy another try." He picked up the capacitor and, with renewed purpose, reattached it to the circuit board. This time, it slid into place with a smooth, almost eager click. He held his breath and flipped the breaker switch. A low hum filled the room, followed by a blessed rush of cool air. Lily gasped, a wide grin splitting her face. "It's working," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around Mike in a spontaneous hug. He chuckled, hugging her back briefly before stepping away, a slightly flustered look on his face. The air conditioning unit purred steadily, chasing away the oppressive heat. Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her, followed by a surge of pride. She'd actually helped. Cool air and new friends. A wheeze, a shudder, then blessed silence. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Lily held her breath, her fingers crossed so tightly they ached. Beside her, Mike adjusted a dial, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple. Then, a low rumble, the fan blade stuttered, and a rush of blessedly cool air blasted from the vents. Lily whooped, jumping up and down. "It's alive. It's actually alive." Mike grinned, wiping his hands on a rag. "Told you we could do it." High fives were exchanged, clumsy but enthusiastic. Lily nearly knocked over a toolbox in her excitement. "We did it, Mike. We actually did it." She felt a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the absence of cool air. It was the warmth of shared success, of genuine connection. The air conditioner hummed contentedly, chasing away the thick, oppressive heat that had been suffocating the room. Lily shivered deliciously, goosebumps prickling her arms. "I haven't felt this good in weeks." A shadow fell across the doorway. Lily's mom stood there, a pitcher of lemonade in her hands, and a knowing smile on her face. "Sounds like someone worked up a thirst. Come on out to the porch, you two. I think you've earned a break." The porch swing creaked rhythmically as they settled onto it, the scent of honeysuckle heavy in the evening air. Lily poured them each a glass of lemonade, the condensation beating on the outside of the glass. The tartness of the lemon was a welcome contrast to the lingering taste of dust and metal from the afternoon's work. "So," Lily's mom said, her eyes twinkling. "Mike tells me you're quite the budding engineer, Lily." Lily blushed, taking a sip of her lemonade. "I just asked a lot of questions." Mike chuckled. "She's got a knack for figuring things out. More than just asking questions. She saw things I missed." Lily beamed at him, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, the only sound the gentle creak of the swing, and the chirping of crickets in the distance. The cool air from the newly functioning AC wafted out from the open window, a tangible reminder of their accomplishment. "Thanks again, Mike," Lily said, turning to him. "I really appreciate you helping me. And for not laughing when I almost short-circuited the entire house." "Anytime, Lily," Mike said, his gaze meeting hers. "Besides," he added with a wink, "I learned a thing or two myself." The silence stretched again, but this time it felt different. Lighter. Filled with a sense of possibility. Lily looked out at the darkening sky, a million stars beginning to prick through the blue. The cool air, the lemonade, the easy camaraderie, it all felt like the start of something new.